Today, we're going to continue with the controller right here. This is one of the things that we've been working on the past few weeks. We had part 1 released I think a month or something ago. So today we're going to continue with part 2, and we're going to be focusing on the buttons right here and the little crosshair right here, or the directional pad, so that you guys can have a very nice final look here for the front part of the controller. So let's go. Very well, let's continue now then with the buttons right here. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make some space for these buttons, because we're going to be doing like a little bit like a surgery, like a topology surgery, where we're going to go in here and insert the shape that we want here for the buttons that we have over there. So this edge right here, we needed it for the first mirror that we did, but now since the object is going to be asymmetrical, we can delete that one. Always when you're deleting vertices or edges, remember to press Control and Delete, so that you also delete not only the edge but also, again, the vertices. Now this one's right here, for instance, what I can do is I can just snap them together, move them out, and just move them a little bit out of the way. We just need to have a little bit of room for the pill shape that we're going to be creating right there on the center. But I don't want to do that change over on this side right here. If I'm going to do it, I'm going to be very, very careful, because those elements do hold the curvature of the object, and then changing them can change the curvature a little bit. So we're going to be very, very careful there. One more thing here, let's do a very quick delete by type history and freeze transformation to make sure that everything's clean. And there we go. Now, for this shape right here, the best way to do it is find a primitive that has a similar shape and extract the shape from that primitive. And in this case, I'm going to use a cylinder. So if I rotate the cylinder and make it face me, I can change this to 8 sides. Okay, so we're going to have 4 on one side, 4 on the other. And then I can delete these faces right here. It's going to give me sort of like a half cap right there. And what I can do now is select all of those edges, Control E, and extrude them out to create this sort of like, again, peel-like shape. Now, if I press Shift and right-click, I can go to Mirror, and I'm going to mirror this on the world and negative X element. And I'm going to hit Apply, or actually not world, bounding box, and hit Apply. This case is positive X. There we go. And this is the shape that we should have. Now, that's what we need, but we actually don't need the inner faces. We need the outer faces. So I'm going to grab this outer faces right here, Control E, just extrude out a little bit, and this, like, ring of faces, this is what we're looking for. This is our main ring of faces that we can use to properly, like, place these elements where we need them. So I'm going to rotate this. As you can see, it's pretty much 45 degrees. It's not exactly 45 degrees, but close to it. So right around there. I'm going to grab this vertex right here, push them up here, and what we can do is this initial edges that we added here, we don't need it anymore, we can delete. And that's it. So as you can see, we've created the edge loop, or the border that we need for those particular slots right there. We know that once we extrude down, like what we did on the previous sections, we're going to have the exact same effect. So this one goes right there as well. Right around there. Perfect. Now, both of these guys need to be aligned and need to be inserted into this face right here. So I'm going to delete that face, grab these guys, center the pivot. I'm going to snap them so that they're perfectly flat against the surface of the other object right here. There we go. So once those are ready, we can combine both objects. And here's where, let's say, our challenge begins, because the big question that we got to ask ourselves is, how are we going to insert these things so that they remain within the topology of our object without interfering with any of the other assets that we already have? Okay, so let's jump into Quadro mode. And what we're going to do is we're going to start moving things around. So this one, I'm just going to push slightly lower. Same for this one right here, just to give me a little bit more space. And again, we don't want these faces to flow into this loop that we have right here, because if we do that, what's going to happen is when we press number 3, we're not going to get a perfect circle. We're going to get some pinching there. And again, that's not what we want. So we need to find a way to either move these things and like transfer them somewhere else, or like create a little bit of looping tricks here to make sure that we get a nice result. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to add one edge loop right there and one edge loop right there. And I'm going to add that as a little bit of a buffer zone, so that I know that at any point I can just keep this face like completely clean. So I know that this face, like as long as I don't go into any of this parts right here, we're going to be fine. Now, over on this side, what we can do here is try to find how to create a little bit of a loop trick to not, trying to find the best way to explain this. We don't want to just add a bunch of crazy lines. We already said that that was not going to work. So we need to find a way into reducing the amount of loops that we have right here and merging them with this flat areas that we have over here that are not going to affect us too much. So for instance, if I add one edge loop right there and one right there, this one just steps right there, and that's fine. And same for this one right here. And we can do the same thing on the bottom part right here. We just add a couple of edge loops, and these edge loops are just going to be going down exactly as what we want, which is this thing right here. Now, I am seeing a little bit of a shadow issue, and I'm wondering if... Oh, it might be just the material. I think it's pretty much the material. So now we have this thing again going up and down, and over here, we're going to have 1, 2, 1, 2, up and down, up and down. We're going to have 1, 2, up and down, and up and down. Cool. That, to me, looks nice. Like, I know that we can definitely work with that. Over on this side, I'm going to add another, sort of like, again, buffer zone. So I'm just going to add an extra edge loop. It's a flat area, so it's not really going to affect us. But that flat area is going to protect me, and it's going to allow me to delete this face and, again, play with some other elements over here. So that's another big face that pretty much just matches there. This, too, we can connect them right there. Again, no big deal. And over here, here's where we can, again, think about how can we simplify this area. We know we have a square up here. From this to this guy, that's a square. That's a perfect square right there. Can we bridge that together? And the answer is yes. Like if we do this and then this, that's a big square right there. That's another big square, but they're all squares, which is what we're looking for. See that? So even though the topology looks a little bit weird, we're still fulfilling the rules of having everything be squares and just like keep everything flowing nicely to the lower sections. So this is what we have right now. Now, we need to fix this area right here, and this is where we need to do, again, a couple of tricks. So instead of making this thing flow in this direction, because we will need to add another edge loop right there, I'm going to make this flow in this upper direction right there. And then this one right here, this is the big question. What do we do right here? Well, that's a square. That's just a square. I know it looks weird because from a shape perspective, it almost looks like a triangle, but that's a square. So no need to worry too much about that one. Same one here. And now here on this side, things change a little bit. Why do they change? Why are we getting? Because of course the topology or the element or the flow is a little bit different. And therefore it might not be exact on both sides. Because on this side we got the cross and on this side we got the buttons. So over on this side, if we do this right here, as you can see, we're going to get an extra edge loop. Is that a big issue? Like is having a triangle right here a big issue for our topology? And the answer is no, because we already have the edge loop right here on the inside. So if we need to hold the edge or add some sort of like clean edge, we're going to be able to do so very, very easily. Now, if you're like a super, what's the word? Like if you really want to have your topology as clean as possible, you can start moving some of these points around. Same for this ones right here. You can just like move them around a little bit. And that's, it's going to, again, give you a little bit of a better visual representation of your asset. But it's not really going to change the shading because all of this area is completely flat. So having done that, let me just delete history here. We got the AI standard surface 1. So let's assign the AI standard surface 1. And there we go. As you can see, we've successfully created the effect right there. Now what we're going to do is this edge right here and this edge right here, we're going to push in a little bit to create the little bevel that we see right there. And then Control E, and we're going to extrude in to create the actual border for the buttons. That's it. That's all we need to do to insert these edges right here. And as you can see, they flow nicely. Again, if you're like a little bit OCD like I am, what you can do is you can go to Scale Tools and just grab all of these elements right here and start scaling them so they look way, 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 way nicer. And all of this are being used for the support edges of this tool right here. Now, some people might argue, hey, you could bring this point like way, way closer and have the triangle instead of all the way here, like a little bit closer to this area. And I agree. But again, once you press number 3, that thing is really not going to bother us anymore. Because at any point, I can just go here with my, not the bevel tool, with the edge tool or the insert tool. And I can insert one edge loop right there and another one right here and another one on the inside right there. And as you can see, when we smooth out, we get the result that we're going for, right? That's sort of like clean effect. Actually, we're missing. I was looking at this one, I was like, why is this one not looking right? Because we're missing the same loops right here. There we go. So now, as you can see, we get the sort of like round effect, round bevel that we want there on the buttons of our controller. That's that's, I would say, one of the secrets about like good topology. And again, from a OCD point of view, if you want, what we can do here is just grab all of this guys and try to keep this as straight as possible. There is another reduction technique, and I'm going to show it to you right now because I know I'm going to get the comments. And topology is one of those things. Here in Mexico, for instance, we have this thing. We do carne asada a lot. We grill some like meat on the outside like grills, and everyone has a way to create their own carne asada. Everyone has their way to create their own like sauce or pico de gallo. Like it's one of those things in life where everyone has an opinion about it, and one of the things that I always tell people is don't worry too much about it. Like it is important, but as long as you are like following proper or some of the proper procedures of the things that we're looking for, again, good topology, clean edge loops and things like that, then like these details where you're like hyper focusing on making sure that things are like super clean or super straight, they're not as important, especially again in flat areas like this. But after saying that, if you want to clean your stuff and be like, no, I want my stuff to be like pretty much like a grid all the time, like a grid, super clean, go for it. Like again, it's not going to be that much of a deal. At least to me, it's not that much of a deal. In the productions that I've worked on, it's never that much of a deal to have like a little bit of a wonky topology here and there. Again, especially for objects that aren't going to deform, but to each their own. Anyway, so the last thing that we need here is, of course, this guy's right here. And this is one of the things that I always tell my students, that it's important to explore the tools here inside of Maya. So, for instance, we can use a cylinder, rotate this cylinder again, like, it's not exactly 45 degrees. So I'm going to go to discrete rotate. It's right around there. And on the options here on the cylinder, you can actually turn the round caps on. So there's this round cap off option. You can switch it to on, and you can add some subdivisions on the round caps. There we go. So by doing this, it's fairly easy to just create the basic shape of the button. Here what we want to do is, of course, we want to create a nice fit with the element right here. So I'm going to have like a very like snuggled fit right there. We can I don't want to actually, I'm going to go back a little bit because I don't want to scale it on the y-axis. If we scale on the y-axis, we get a little bit of a weird result right there. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to have this right there. And following the curvature. I can already see that the curvature is a little bit wonky, so we might need to modify some of the points right there. But then I'm just going to grab all of these faces right here. Just move them with the same axis. There we go. Of course, once we push this forward, that should give us a better fit. Now, this pill that we just added, it's a very sort of like important pill because it's perfectly cylindrical. So here's where I might even just grab some of this vertex right here and push them in so they hug this thing a little bit nicer. So I want a really tight fit, and I don't want to deform the object, right? So what we need to modify here is just modify that curvature so it looks as nice as possible. Now on this one though, one thing that we're definitely going to do is we're going to go to the top view. We're going to grab this pill effects, and we're going to delete all of these elements right here. Grab this ones as well, this ones as well, goodbye. Now this one's Control E, and we just extrude in. That's going to give our button a nicer sort of like a flat effect. Now this ones were usually a little bit flatter, so I'm just going to flatten it up a little bit more right there. And if you want to, you can close in the edges right here. So I'm going to close this in. And I don't recommend, like, you can do the full cap, but one thing that you can do here as well is just add a little bit of a border so that when we do number 3, we're at least covering the back part right there so we don't see the back part. I do recommend this one's right here, beveling it so that we get a very straight line going down. And especially at render time, all of that area is going to look like, what's the word? It's going to look like a flat, dark area. So we're going to have a little bit of a shadow right there. And the button's going to look way more integrated. So now we just grab this button right here. We duplicate it over to this side. And we follow a similar process. We just try to get this thing to be as nice and as close as possible, even if we need to move some of these points in. So again, we don't want to deform the button. The button should always remain cylindrical. It's kind of like the one that's guiding our shapes. There we go. That's quite nice. I'm a little bit concerned about why this got flared out, to be honest. So I'm just going to push it in. Again, Control E, push this in quite a bit. And we just bevel that area right there. That's it. So with that done, we got both of our buttons right there. They even have the sort of like color that I'm going for. I can probably push them out a little bit more. And there we go. That was a little bit too much. Let's save real quick. Grab everything. Just delete history. I'm not going to freeze transforms just yet. I'm just going to freeze history for now. And now let's go to this guy right here, which it was very funny. On the first video, one of the first comments was like, if you're going to show me how to do this cross that way, I'm not going to follow the videos. Like, dude, it's part 1. You need to watch part 2, which, by the way, if you're watching all the way to this point, that means that you really want to learn, and it's great. So let's go with this. So what I'm going to do here is, first of all, we need to create the shape of the cross. This cross, like this one right here, it's actually going to go. Like, we're not going to use it. So we need to create the shape of the cross. And to do that, we need to have at least an edge loop that goes really, really close to the top part right there. So I'm going to grab all of these faces, Control E, and I'm going to offset in right around that border and delete. There we go. Now, these 2 edges right here, we're going to scale down. This 2, I'm going to scale down as well. This 2, scale down. And this 2, scale down, so that they're perfectly flat, okay? Now, this 2, well, pretty much all of them, especially this 4 ones right here, I'm going to scale in so that they touch the little border that we have right there. And what I want to do here is I'm going to do a little bit of a trick here on the border to generate the this like proper edge flow, this like nice soft edge flow. And one of the things, actually, let's go back here. One of the things that I've always mentioned to you guys is you need to learn how to work smart, not hard. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to grab just a quarter of these faces right here. Okay, just a quarter. I'm going to say edit mesh and duplicate. So now I got this object and I got this object and that object right there. This one, I'm going to get into a layer and hide it for just a second so that I can focus on this one. Because I know that when I press number 3, the border on this one's going to be really clean. And we can very easily merge this or stitch it back together with the other one. So I'm going to go to my tool right here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an edge flow. Okay, I'm going to create a new edge flow right here that follows the shape of our cross. So I know we're going to start right there, there. And we're going to have a little like point right there. Then another one right here. And if I want this thing to be round, which is what we have right here, we need to add the edge flow flowing in that direction. This is basic sort of like box modeling things, okay? I'm going to grab edge loop. I'm going to grab these 2 guys, for instance, and just snap them together. Then these 2 guys, snap them together, and there we go. So when I press number 3, as you can see, we're going to get this very nice sort of like smooth transition into the cross of the object. We definitely need another edge loop right here because right now it's like going down too much. So I'm going to add an edge loop right here, but what I'm going to do, and this is again, thanks to the fact that this is a flat area, I'm just going to merge this into a triangle right there, okay? So same thing over here. We're going to add one edge loop right here, and this 2 right here, we're going to merge together. There we go. So now when we press number 3, as you can see, we hold most of the shape very, very nicely, which is what we want. Now over on this side, this guy is going to be on top of that guy, so we're just going to merge together. And this guy is going to be on top of that guy, and we're going to merge that together. And we're going to be left with this like single face. There's a bunch of ways. Actually, let me show you another way. There's a bunch of ways to solve this topology right here. One of the options is to just keep adding another little bit of topology right here. So that's another square. As you can see, we got 1, 2, 3 lines. So technically, we should be able to combine them. It's going to be a little bit tricky. So we're going to do one big face right there, another big face right there, and then this big face right here. And finally, we're going to have 1 and 2. Okay? This is definitely way, way more symmetrical than what I was going for on the first one. So by doing this, we create a sort of like edge loop situation where we have this very clean edge going around this cross section. And at the same time, we have a very flat area for the rest of the elements. So once we have that, the next thing that we need to do, and again, it's fairly easy, is of course we need to duplicate this thing, right? So we need to find the center point on this element, which we don't have at the moment, but we can very easily like bring back. The way to bring this back is just grab all of these edges and say edit mesh or mesh fill hole, and then grab this face, edit mesh and poke, and that's our center point, right? So we grab this object right here, move its pivot point to the center, and of course we duplicate and rotate 45, or in this case 90 degrees. There we go. And once that has been done, we combine both objects. We merge this to center. I would definitely grab all of these guys and flatten them out. Merge those to center as well, and merge those to center as well. Make sure all of these are perfectly straight. And in this case, it's easier, since we already have 1/2, to do a bounding box y negative mirror. And there we go. So that's it. We've created the proper shape for our like our navigation triangle right there. And now the only thing I need to do is delete all of these faces again. Bring back this guy right here. Combine them. And just stitch back these elements. So all of these ones, we just merge them back. Just grab both of them, merge to center is perfectly fine. Press number 3. As you can see, that one's pretty much on top of the element. We merge to center, merge to center, merge to center, merge to center, and we just go around the whole thing, stitching it together. It's still a circle. We're not worried about this, and it's a flat area, so again, not too much to worry about there either. And that's it. With that done, there seems like I'm missing a couple of ones right there. Whenever you see, or I see that weird pinch, that means that we are missing something. There we go. Those two. So those two will just merge together. Those two will just merge together. It's really weird that it's not... doesn't want to be merged right there. Let's save real quick. When that happens, I just save. I delete history. And again, I try to find the culprit right here. It's those two. And those two. Really weird. There we go. That's quite bizarre. I'm not sure why that is happening, to be honest. That shouldn't be an issue. But if that happens, another thing you can do is just delete the faces right there. You can see that's working fine. We just bridge from one to the other. Usually some sort of like bug with some birdseed or something. There we go. So now we only need to grab this as right here, Control E. We're gonna push this in again to create the place for the little cross. We can even extrude in. And it's just a matter of beveling, right? So we're gonna grab both of those guys, bevel, 2 segments and a small fraction. So when we press number 3, we got the perfect cutout for our little like directional path right there. So that gives us the proper cut there for the directional path. And even if we want to like add sharper corners or something, thanks to the way this thing is flowing, we can very easily just insert a natural right there. But I think that this is like quite nice. The next challenge that we're going to have here, and this is probably going to be the last part on this part 2 effect. The next challenge is going to be this thing right here, this little cross. And again, it's all about being smart on how we approach this thing. So I know that if I do one of the sections, then it's going to be fairly easy to do all of the other 4 sections. I also know that if I do half of this section, so like this quarter of an element, we can duplicate that 8 times and get the full effect. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to start with a quadra tool, actually. So I'm going to start with a plane. I'm going to bring a plane in all the way here to the center of one of those elements, or one of those little triangles. We're going to set the divisions to 1 and 1. There we go. And I know that this is going to be, again, the center of this little triangle right there. Now I'm going to jump into quadra, and it's a matter of understanding the kind of curvature that I want. So this is a round triangle, right? That means that on the corners, we're going to have this or like flow. You can delete that one. And then we're going to have another flow, let's say right there. And that's going to be my center point right there. Over on this side, we can add square. And I don't want to have a triangle right there. It feels weird to have a triangle on this specific area. Again, it's not the end of the world. We can definitely work with it. But it just looks ugly. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to add another edge loop right there. Trying to think. Now I'm going to add 1 point here on the center. And create this flow right here. See that? So from this corner, we go up and we go to the other side. And that way we keep everything like pretty uniform. All of the center line, all of this points right here, we're going to center quite nicely right there. And this is our cross, right? Like this, I know that this point right here and this point right here, that's the center of our cross. Like They're still on the very center line. So that's going to be an important point because I need to match or make sure that this little thing right here matches that center point. So I'm going to grab all of this vertex right here and snap them right there to the center. Now from this point, this face right here, I'm going to extrude up. That's going to create the top border of the element. And then these two guys right here, I'm going to extrude to the side. And those are going to create the side of the little, again, crosshair thing right here. This one right here makes sense to extrude to the side as well. Grab those two vertices and join them together. And of course, this one right here, we're just going to export or extrude up. And as you can see, what we're doing here is we're creating a sort of like grid-based approach where everything that we're adding onto the element is going to follow a grid pattern. Now, this guy right here, Control E, we're going to go all the way down here. And that's where the arrow pretty much finishes, right? Like, this is where we can, like, think about our 8 parts and just duplicate around. So once we have this, I am going to press number 3 to make sure that, okay, everything is looking fine. We're going to do a mirror here on X negative bounding box to get the other side of the triangle, right? The other side of the piece right here. And what I can do is I can grab all of these elements. We can Control E to extrude, do a little bit of an offset, and push in, right? And that is what's going to give us the sort of like nice triangular looking shape. Now, based on the reference, you can see that's a lot deeper. So let's push this in a little bit more. And then what I'm going to do is, of course, I'm going to bevel this lower part right there. We're getting a little bit of a weird bevel right there. Let's do a quick delete history. So the bevel should be... It's a little bit weird that we're getting... See that like switch that we're getting there? Not sure why that is happening. We don't have any extra geometry. Instead, let's try adding just an edge loop right there. It's going to serve pretty much the same purpose. And on the upper one, I'm going to add 2 edge loops to get a little bit of a sharper effect. There we go. As you can see, we get that triangular looking shape from our element right there. We can add another edge loop here on this area. That's going to make sure that the triangle remains quite flat on the bottom. And yeah, that's it. So with this done, the next thing I need to do is, again, I need to find this center pivot so that we can duplicate this, right? So I'm going to find this, which I know it's going to be right there, actually. And we just do Control D, rotate 90 degrees. Control D, rotate 180 degrees. Control D, and rotate 270. Good thing we all went to high school, right? And we know our basic geometry things. There we go. So we grab all of this, guys. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to merge these corners to the center. Actually, no, that's going to make a little bit of a mess. So all of this, guys, I'm going to push up. All of this, guys, I'm going to push down. And then all of this, guys, I'm going to push back like that. I'm using V to snap this. There we go. And now all of those points, we're going to merge together, merge to center, and we're going to be left with this inner side right here. So I'm going to grab all of the faces right here on the inner side. We cannot double click, but we can grab all of them. Control E, just extrude in. As you can see there, we have a circle. So we just grab this thing. I'm going to use the mesh circulars, or sorry, edit mesh circularize tool. And as you can see, that's going to give me a very, very clean circle. Once we have that, we need to create a little like dimple that this circle has. So we just Control E, push in. Control E, push in again. Probably a little bit like that. I'll do probably on the last one, Control E. As you can see, I'm doing like a manual approximation. You could also use a sphere and stitch it in. Again, as with anything 3D, there's always multiple ways to do this thing right here. And we're going to use this face, edit mesh, and poke. That's it. With that done, we got this thing right here. One thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this element and I'm going to give it a small bevel. That's going to hold the circle a lot better. As you can see, it's going to give us a very, very nice result. Finally, we're just going to grab all of the elements right here, push them in, and that's going to give us the nice effect right there. And of course, we need to add a support edge here on the top so that things become way, way nicer. That's it. That's how you get your like directional like stick like properly on the place right here. Now the last thing that I want to do is probably just extrude it up a little bit more. And similar to what we've mentioned before, it might be a good idea to just like flare this out a little bit, or just finish the inside, because I do feel like there's a lot of distance on this like part right here. And I know we see that there, like there's like a hollow section, but I feel like it's a little bit too much. So let's go to the front view. I do feel like we pretty much match our cross section right there. It's this thing right here that's a little bit too weird. So let's gonna close up that element a little bit more. That's definitely gonna help. But then I'm just gonna go and probably grab like all of these corners right here. So this is it, guys. As you can see, this is now a like nicely, tightly covered thing here, and this is what we're going for. So one more thing that I'm gonna do here is I'm just gonna go to this, guys, and I'm gonna assign a new material. It's gonna be an Arnold, a standard surface, and we already got this nice sort of like render effect for the whole thing. So it's just a matter of doing a quick render. And with this, we're finished with this part 2. Now, on the next part, we're going to be doing the bumpers at the back part here, maybe a cable or something like that. Leave me in the comments if there's other things that you want to cover on the modeling section side of things. And eventually, we're going to do UVs and textures and, of course, render as well to present this. But yeah, hopefully you guys like this part 2 and you learned a couple of new like elements or tricks, especially on the topology side of things. I hope that this information on how to weave topology together to get a nice result is giving you some insight on how to model more complex things. So yeah, if you want to learn more about Maya, Substance, or any other of the other courses, or if you want to support the channel and learn at the same time, make sure to check the comments down here or the description right here for our website so that you can check our full premium courses. That's it, my friends. I'll see you back on the next one.